The slap came before the tears. Annabelle didn't even see it coming. One moment she was begging him to listen, and the next, Felix's hand landed across her cheek, loud enough to silence the whole compound. For a few seconds, she couldn't move. The shock froze her where she stood, barefoot on the cold marble floor, her trembling hands clutching the edge of her wrapper. The house she once called home now looked like a courtroom. "Pack your things and get out." Felix's voice thundered through the sitting room, echoing against the high ceiling. His eyes, once warm, once full of promises, now burned with disgust. Annabelle's lips quivered. "Felix, I didn't do anything. You have to believe me, please." "Believe you?" He laughed bitterly. "After everything I've done for you? After all the warnings I ignored because I thought you were different? My mother was right. You're just like the rest." He turned away, shaking his head. Her eyes darted around the room, the expensive furniture she once polished with love, the framed pictures of their happier days, the scent of the cologne she bought for him with her own little savings. Everything mocked her. "I swear, Felix," she whispered, voice breaking, "I've never cheated on you. I've never lied to you. I love you." He raised his hand again, and she flinched, but this time, he just pointed toward the door. "Leave, before I lose control." Something in his voice told her it wasn't an empty threat. So she turned, slow and broken, toward the door. The maid, Kimi, stood at the corridor watching, her face pale with fear. She wanted to speak, to defend Annabelle, but the weight of Felix's authority chained her silence. Annabelle walked out without shoes, without her bag, without pride. Her tears dropped like heavy rain on the tiled floor as she stepped outside, chased out of a house she helped build with love and faith. Behind her, the gate slammed shut. She didn't know that life had just shifted beneath her feet, that the child already forming in her womb would change everything. The gate slammed behind her like a final judgment. Annabelle stood in the middle of the compound, trembling, staring at the heavy iron bars that now separated her from everything she once called home. The compound was quiet, too quiet. Even the security man, Musa, avoided her eyes. She wanted to scream, to run back inside and shake Felix until he believed her. But her body was too weak, her heart too torn. Her cheek burned from his slap, her soul heavier than her feet could carry. She staggered toward the street, hugging herself. She had nowhere to go. The sky was already darkening, not from the weather, but from her own confusion. She had left her phone, her purse, and her pride inside that house. All she had was the wrapper around her chest and the memories that suddenly felt like knives. A group of neighbors watched from a distance, whispering. They didn't know the story, only the shame. And in Lagos, shame traveled faster than truth. She walked aimlessly until she reached the bus stop at Allen Junction. The noise of buses, the smell of roasted corn, the chaos of voices, it all clashed with the silence in her heart. She found a spot under an old mango tree, sat on the pavement, and pressed her palms against her face. Tears poured freely now. "God, why?" she whispered. "Why me?" Her body shook as she cried, not because of the pain alone, but because she had no idea what would happen next. 2 weeks later, Annabelle sat on a wooden chair in Kayoma's tiny one-room apartment in Age. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow. Kayoma, her childhood friend, had taken her in without asking questions. Kayoma placed a bowl of pap in front of her. "You need to eat something," she said softly. Annabelle didn't respond. She stared at the floor, her hands resting on her belly unconsciously. Kayoma sighed. "I still don't understand. Felix just threw you out? Without proof?" Annabelle's voice was barely a whisper. "He said someone told him I was seeing another man." Kayoma frowned. "Who?" "I don't know. He wouldn't tell me." Kayoma sat beside her. "Annabelle, that man doesn't deserve your tears. You gave him everything, your time, your loyalty, your soul. And this is what he gives you back? A slap and shame." Annabelle pressed her lips together. "I loved him, Kayoma. I still do. That's the problem. I keep hoping he'll call, that he'll realize I didn't betray him." Kioma looked at her gently. And if he never does? Annabel didn't answer. She only rubbed her stomach again. That small, restless movement she hadn't even noticed herself doing for days. Kioma noticed it, though. Wait, she said slowly. You've been touching your belly since you came. Are you okay? Annabel blinked. I'm fine. Just tired. No, Kioma insisted. When last did you see your period? Annabel froze. The room went silent. She counted silently in her head. The days, the weeks. Her throat tightened. Kioma, her voice cracked. I think I'm pregnant. Kioma's eyes widened. Pregnant? Annabel nodded slowly, her hands shaking. Felix's child. Her words hung heavy in the air. A month later, Annabel's life became a quiet storm. She stopped waiting for Felix's call. It never came. Instead, she started selling small items at the market, soaps, biscuits, sachet water, anything to buy food and antenatal vitamins. People whispered when they saw her rounded belly, but she stopped caring. She had learned that silence was better than defending herself to people who already believed the worst. Sometimes she'd pass by the street where she and Felix used to live. She'd stand far away, watching the tall gates from a distance, wondering if he ever thought of her. He didn't. Felix was busy building his company, growing richer, attending parties, and taking pictures with Aurora, the new woman in his life. Meanwhile, Felix sat in his office one evening, scrolling through his phone. His friend, Say, entered and handed him a bottle of malt. Guy, you still thinking about that Annabel girl? Say teased. Felix scoffed. Think about what? That liar? Abeg, forget her. I moved on. Say chuckled. If you say so. But you know something? She never struck me as that kind of person. Felix looked up sharply. What do you mean? I mean, you might have overreacted. Rumors can destroy relationships, bro. You should have investigated properly. Felix frowned but said nothing. He didn't like to admit that the thought haunted him sometimes, late at night, when silence forced him to remember her tears. But pride was louder than guilt. He turned his attention back to his laptop. Abeg, drop that matter. Aurora is my focus now. 6 years later. Life had changed. Annabel now lived in Ibadan, working as a tailor in a small shop beside a local church. Her son, Junior, was 5 years old, the perfect reflection of Felix. Every time she looked into his eyes, she saw the man who broke her heart and the reason she survived. Junior was her world. Sometimes, when customers delayed payment, she'd take him on her back and walk home under the dim streetlights, whispering to him, "We'll be fine, my baby. Mama will never let you suffer." Her love for him gave her strength. She never told Felix. She didn't see the point. Until one morning, a letter arrived at her shop, sealed in a gold envelope. The handwriting was painfully familiar. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside, the first line froze her heart. Felix Adeyemi and Aurora Williams joyfully invite you to celebrate their wedding ceremony. Her eyes blurred. Her breathing stopped. She held the paper tightly, trying not to cry. After all these years, after everything, he had invited her to his wedding. Annabel stared at the letter for a long time before she sat down on the stool by her sewing machine. The thread still ran through the needle. The last dress she had been working on, a bright yellow gown, lay unfinished on her lap. The gold of the invitation mocked her. She had seen that handwriting 1,000 times before, on love notes, on cards that came with roses, on the tiny paper he'd once tucked under her pillow that read, "My forever queen." Now that same hand had written to invite her to watch him marry someone else. Her throat tightened. She didn't cry immediately. She just stared at the words until they blurred together. Felix Adeyemi and Aurora Williams joyfully invite you to celebrate their wedding ceremony. Joyfully. The word burned. For a long time, she sat still. Then slowly, she folded the invitation, placed it on the table, and covered her face with both hands. She didn't weep for love. That part of her had died years ago. She wept for the wasted dreams, for the pain that never fully healed, for the loneliness of raising a child whose father didn't even know he existed. Later that evening, Kyoma visited from Lagos. She walked into the little tailoring shop and found Annabel silent, the golden card lying on the table. "What's this?" Kyoma asked, picking it up. When she saw the names, she hissed sharply. "Jesus! Felix? He has the guts to send you this." Annabel wiped her eyes quickly. "Maybe it's a mistake." Kyoma stared at her. "A mistake? My sister, are you hearing yourself? How did he even find your address?" "I don't know." Kyoma sat down beside her. "So, what are you going to do?" Annabel looked away. "Nothing. I'll just ignore it." But deep inside, she knew it wasn't that simple. Something about the letter felt deliberate, as if Felix wanted her to see him happy, to prove that he'd moved on. That night, after putting Junior to sleep, she sat by the small window and looked out at the moon. The street was quiet, the distant noise of generators humming softly. She remembered his laughter, his promises, his betrayal. She whispered to herself, "If he wants me to see him, then I'll go. But not as the woman he threw away. I'll go as the woman who survived." Meanwhile, in Lagos, Felix stood before the mirror in his spacious bedroom, adjusting his tie. Ada Aura was on the bed, scrolling through her phone, half listening to him talk. "Babe," he said, "I sent out the final batch of invitations yesterday. One went to someone from my past." Ada Aura looked up, uninterested. "An ex?" He nodded. "Why?" she asked, her tone sharp. He shrugged. "Closure. Maybe. I want her to see how far I've come." Ada Aura laughed, a cold, sarcastic laugh. "So you want to parade me in front of your ex? You men are funny." Felix smiled faintly. "Don't be jealous. She means nothing now." But even as he said it, her face flashed in his mind. Annabel, standing barefoot at his gate, tears on her face. He frowned and pushed the memory away. Ada Aura was perfect, rich, educated, stylish. She had connections that helped his business expand. She was everything his mother ever wanted for him. Still, at night, when Ada Aura slept, Felix sometimes stared at the ceiling and wondered what might have been if he had just listened, if he had just believed Annabel that day. The week passed slowly. Annabel worked hard, finishing orders before the end of the month. She tried to ignore the letter sitting on her table, but every time she looked at it, her stomach twisted. Junior was growing fast. He was bright, cheerful, and always asking questions. He had Felix's eyes, the same brown sparkle that caught light easily, the same smile that used to melt her heart. "Mummy," he said one evening, playing on the floor, "who is my daddy?" The needle slipped from her hand. Her chest tightened. She forced a smile. "Your daddy is far away." Junior frowned. "Can I see him?" "Not now, my love," she said softly. "When the time is right." But she knew the truth. Felix didn't even know the boy existed. The wedding day approached. Annabel hadn't planned to go, but something inside her refused to rest. She borrowed a simple blue gown from Kyoma, styled her hair neatly, and left Junior with her neighbor. The journey from Ibadan to Lagos was long. As the bus sped along the highway, she stared out the window, her mind swirling with memories. She wasn't going there to beg or to fight. She was going there to close a chapter. When the bus entered the city, her heart began to race. Lagos was the same, loud, crowded, full of motion. She hadn't been back since the day she was thrown out. The wedding venue was a large event center in Ikeja, white tents, luxury cars, photographers everywhere. As she stepped out of the cab, people turned to look at her. She wasn't dressed expensively, but her calm, graceful presence drew attention. She walked to the gate and handed her invitation to the security man. He looked at her, then nodded and let her in. The hall glittered with gold and white decorations. A live band played softly. Guests laughed, clinking glasses of wine. Felix stood near the altar in a crisp white agbada, smiling for the cameras. Ada Aura was beside him, flawless in a shimmering gown. Annabel found a seat at the far corner, quietly. She didn't want to be noticed. She just wanted to see him, to remind herself that it was over. But fate had other plans. During the ceremony, Felix's eyes drifted across the crowd. And then he saw her. Annabel. He froze. For a brief second, the world around him disappeared. He couldn't hear the music, couldn't see the guests, just her. Sitting quietly, her face calm, older, more beautiful than he remembered. Aurora noticed his distraction. She leaned toward him. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," he lied quickly. But his hands trembled. When the priest asked him to repeat his vows, he stumbled over the words. Sweat gathered on his forehead. His mother, seated in the front row, frowned. "Felix, are you okay?" He nodded, forcing a smile. "I'm fine, Mama." But he wasn't fine. He couldn't stop glancing toward Annabel. Every look brought back memories, her laughter, her kindness, the night she cooked his favorite meal and waited all evening for him to come home. And then the day he destroyed it all. After the ceremony, guests moved to the reception hall. Annabel stood quietly near the exit, ready to leave. But someone tapped her shoulder. She turned, and froze. It was Felix's mother. "Annabel." Mama. Felix's voice trembled. "Is it really you?" Annabel bowed politely. "Good afternoon, Ma." Mama. Felix stared at her, speechless. "My God. You're the girl my son drove away." "Yes, Ma." The older woman's eyes softened. Regret flashed across her face. "I told him to leave you, but I didn't know he would treat you that way. You were a good girl." Annabel forced a weak smile. "It's all in the past, Ma. Do you have a family now?" Mama. Felix asked gently. Annabel hesitated. "Yes, I have a son." The woman nodded. "I'm glad you're doing well." But as she turned to go, she added softly, "You know, sometimes God lets time punish pride better than words ever could." Annabel didn't reply. She walked out of the hall quietly, her heart strangely at peace. She had seen enough. But behind her, Felix stood near the doorway, watching. He had overheard. His hands shook as he whispered, "A son." That night, after the wedding, when all the guests had left and Aurora was busy posing for photos, Felix slipped away to the parking lot. He leaned on his car, breathing heavily. A son. The words echoed in his mind like a curse. He remembered that day, how he had shouted at her, how she had begged, how he had slammed the gate behind her. He remembered her pale face, her tears. And now she had a son. Could it be? He closed his eyes. Deep inside, he knew the answer. He didn't need a DNA test. He knew. The realization hit him like thunder. He had thrown away not just the woman who loved him, but also his own child. Back in Ibadan, Annabel returned home quietly. Junior ran into her arms, laughing. She held him tightly, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Did you see Daddy?" he asked innocently. She smiled faintly. "Yes, my love. I saw him. Will he come and see us?" Her smile faded. "Maybe one day." She kissed his forehead and whispered, "But even if he doesn't, we'll be okay." And she meant it. Felix sat alone that night in his luxury home beside Aurora, who was already asleep. He stared at the wedding ring on his finger and felt nothing but emptiness. He whispered into the dark, "Annabel, forgive me." But forgiveness, like love, wasn't always waiting where you left it. Felix had never known silence could be this loud. The house was filled with luxury, chandeliers, marble floors, glass tables, yet it felt hollow. Adeora's laughter echoed faintly from the bedroom, where she was on a video call showing off their wedding gifts. He sat alone in the living room, holding a photo frame of their wedding. His reflection stared back at him. The smile on his face looked forced now. The more he stared, the more it disgusted him. He dropped the frame on the table and leaned back. That one sentence from the wedding haunted him. "Yes, Ma, I have a son." A son. His son. He could still see Annabel's calm eyes as she said it. No hatred, no bitterness, just quiet strength. The kind of peace that made his own heart restless. He hadn't slept properly since that day. Every night, he saw her in his dreams, carrying a child, walking away from him while he stood helplessly at the gate. The guilt was eating him alive. 3 days after the wedding, Felix called Say. "Guy," he said over the phone, his voice low. "I need a favor." Say yawned. "You just got married, and you're calling me like someone that lost money. What's going on?" Felix hesitated. "I need you to find someone. Her name is Annabelle. She used to live in Lagos years ago, before we broke up." Say was silent for a moment. "You mean the girl you—" "Yes," Felix cut in sharply. "Don't remind me. Just find her. Please." Say exhaled. "All right. Give me a few days." Felix ended the call and sat back. For the first time in years, he realized how empty success felt when guilt was your shadow. Later that evening, Aurora returned from a shopping trip. Her phone buzzed non-stop as she strutted around in her heels, showing Felix a designer bag. "Babe, look what I bought for the honeymoon." Felix looked up from his laptop briefly and forced a smile. "Nice." She frowned. "Nice? That's all you'll say? This bag cost ₦500,000. He sighed. "Aurora, we've been spending too much lately." She dropped the bag sharply on the table. "Spending too much? You're a millionaire, Felix. What's money for if not to enjoy life?" Felix rubbed his temples. "It's not about the money. It's about priorities." Aurora crossed her arms. "Oh, I see. You're acting strange since the wedding. What's going on? Don't tell me it's about that woman who showed up." Felix froze. "What woman?" "The one sitting alone at the corner. I saw where your eyes kept going." "Who is she?" He swallowed hard. "Just someone I used to know." Adeora's lips curved into a cold smile. "Used to know? Hey, be careful, Felix. Some ghosts are better left buried." Her tone was sharp, not jealous, but threatening. Felix said nothing. But deep inside, something told him Aurora wasn't the angel he once thought she was. Meanwhile, in Ibadan, Annabelle's days were peaceful but exhausting. Her small tailoring shop had grown. She now had 2 apprentices, young girls she treated like younger sisters. Every morning, she woke early to prepare Junior for school, then opened her shop. Her laughter had returned, though the pain still lingered quietly in her chest. One evening, she stood outside, watching the sunset fade behind the roofs. Kyoma sat beside her, sipping zobo. "Have you heard from him?" Kyoma asked. Annabelle shook her head. "No, and I don't want to." Kyoma smiled faintly. "You're stronger than I thought, Annabelle." Annabelle looked at her hands, rough from work but steady. "I had no choice. I had to be strong for my son." Just then, Junior ran out, holding his schoolbook. "Mummy, see what I drew." He showed her a drawing of a man, woman, and child holding hands. "That's you, me, and Daddy." Annabelle smiled sadly and hugged him tight. Kyoma looked away, her eyes misty. She knew what that hug meant. Love mixed with longing and the unspoken truth that life didn't always give second chances. Say called 3 days later. "Felix, I found her." Felix jumped up. "Way. Ibadan. She's a tailor now. Lives near Okadu. And bro," Say hesitated. "She has a son. He's about 2 or 3. Looks just like you." Felix's heart stopped. He couldn't breathe. Could it really be true? He grabbed his car keys. "Text me the address." Say tried to stop him. "Felix, relax first." But the line went dead. Felix drove himself to Ibadan that evening, the same highway Annabelle had taken years ago when she left. The irony wasn't lost on him. She had gone with nothing but tears, and he was coming with guilt heavy enough to crush him. He parked near her shop, heart pounding. Through the window, he saw her sewing, her hair tied in a scarf, her face calm and glowing under the weak bulb. For a long time, he couldn't move. He just stood there, watching the woman he once broke now rebuilt into something stronger. Then, he saw the boy, small, bright-eyed, playing with scraps of fabric near her feet. Felix's vision blurred. He pressed a trembling hand to his chest. His son. He wanted to run in, to fall on his knees, to beg, but fear held him still. How do you face the person you destroyed? Annabel looked up suddenly and froze. Felix was standing at the door. For a moment, the whole world went quiet. Even the sound of the sewing machine stopped. Her apprentices glanced between them, confused. She stood slowly. Felix. His lips parted, but no words came out. His eyes glistened. Annabel. Why are you here? She asked, her tone steady. I needed to see you. To see him. His eyes flicked to Junior. Annabel's jaw tightened. You lost that right a long time ago. He took a step closer. Please, just hear me out. I didn't know. You didn't care to know, she cut in sharply. You didn't listen. You believed lies. And now you want forgiveness because guilt is eating you. Her voice trembled, but her gaze didn't. Felix lowered his head. You're right. I don't deserve it. But I can't live another day pretending you and that boy don't exist. Junior looked up. Mummy, who is that man? Annabel's throat tightened. She turned away. Go inside, Junior. The boy obeyed, but not before looking curiously at Felix, his father, without knowing it. When the door closed, Felix's tears fell freely. I'm sorry, Annabel, he whispered. I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me. Annabel blinked back her tears. Sorry doesn't change the past, Felix. I cried for years. I begged God to take the pain away. Now that I've found peace, don't come to scatter it again. Felix nodded slowly. I understand. But please, let me at least take care of him. My son deserves to know his father. Annabel looked at him for a long moment, then shook her head. He deserves peace more than a father who brings chaos. When Felix returned home that night, Adaora was waiting. Where were you? She demanded. He hesitated. I went to Ibadan. Her eyes narrowed. To see her, right? He didn't answer. Adaora laughed bitterly. You men are all the same. You chase what you can't have, and when you finally get it, you destroy it. I hope she slams the door in your face. Felix's silence confirmed it. Adaora's face hardened. Let me make something clear, Felix. I didn't marry you for love. I married you for power. For name. So, if you think you can run back to some tailor in Ibadan, think again. Felix's head snapped up. What did you just say? She smiled coldly. You heard me. You were useful, that's all. But love? Don't make me laugh. She walked out of the room, her heels clicking against the marble floor. Felix sank onto the couch, head in his hands. The truth was now clear. He had married the wrong woman for all the wrong reasons. The next morning, Annabel sat at her window, watching Junior play outside. Felix's words echoed in her mind. She didn't want to forgive him, but she couldn't hate him either. Because despite everything, her son was proof that love once lived there. She whispered to herself, maybe some pain doesn't end, it just changes shape. Outside, Junior laughed. The sound warmed her heart. And far away in Lagos, Felix sat alone in his car, staring at a photo of a little boy he barely knew but already loved more than anything. For both of them, the invitation had reopened wounds that time had only covered, not healed. But sometimes, pain was the only path back to truth. That night, Lagos didn't sleep. The city was alive with its usual noise. Cars honking, generators humming, vendors shouting. Yet inside Felix's mansion, silence screamed louder than anything outside. He sat on the edge of his bed, still wearing the same shirt from his trip to Ibadan. His eyes were red from tears and exhaustion. Adaora's words replayed in his mind like a curse. I didn't marry you for love. I married you for power. The realization hit him hard. For years, he thought he was in control, successful, respected, powerful. But now he saw himself for what he really was, a man living in a golden cage. At dawn, Aurora emerged from the bathroom, wrapped in a silk robe, humming softly. She caught sight of Felix sitting quietly and smirked. "You're still sulking," she said. "Grow up, Felix. You knew what this marriage was." He didn't look at her. "I didn't marry you for power, Aurora. I married you because I thought you were different." She scoffed. "Different? You men all say that when you're bored. You saw a beautiful woman, a woman from a respected family, and you thought you could own her. Now that you've realized I can't be controlled, you're crying about love." Felix stood up slowly. "You disgust me." Aurora smiled coldly. "And yet, here you are, still married to me." She picked up her phone and walked away, her perfume lingering behind like poison. Felix clenched his fists. For the first time in years, he wanted to scream. But instead, he turned toward the window, staring into the early morning sky. He whispered, "Annabelle, what have I done?" Back in Ibadan, Annabelle tried to push the memories away. She poured her energy into work, stitching dresses while her mind drifted to the man who had once been her world. Kyoma noticed the change. "You've been quiet all morning. You're thinking about him again, aren't you?" Annabelle sighed. "I shouldn't be. But seeing him yesterday, it brought everything back." Kyoma nodded slowly. "You loved him, Annabelle. That doesn't disappear just because he hurt you. But don't let that love drag you into pain again." Annabelle smiled faintly. "I know. I just want my son to grow up happy. That's all that matters." But deep down, she knew it wasn't that simple. Because Junior was beginning to ask questions she wasn't ready to answer. That evening, as Annabelle tucked Junior into bed, he turned to her and asked softly, "Mummy, who was that man that came to your shop?" Annabelle froze. "Which man?" "The tall one that looked sad. The one that cried when he saw me." She swallowed hard. An old friend." Junior blinked. "Did he make you sad, Mummy?" Annabelle smiled gently, brushing his hair. "A long time ago, yes. But not anymore." He nodded sleepily. "I like him. He looked like me." Her heart stopped. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. When he fell asleep, she sat beside his bed, tears filling her eyes. He did look like Felix. Same sharp nose. Same curious eyes. How long could she keep the truth from him? 2 weeks later, Lagos was buzzing with gossip. Felix's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters were calling, bloggers were posting, and the headlines were merciless. Billionaire Felix Adebayo's wife caught in secret affair with business partner. Felix felt sick. He turned off his phone, but the news spread like wildfire. Aurora had been photographed at a hotel with another man, a politician named Chief Agbage. He stormed into the living room where Aurora sat calmly, scrolling through her phone. "Is it true?" he demanded. She looked up lazily. "Is what true?" "Don't play games with me, Aurora." His voice shook with rage. "You've embarrassed me in front of the whole country." Aurora laughed softly. "Oh, please. Don't act like a saint. You think I didn't know about your trip to Ibadan? You went crawling back to your ex, didn't you?" Felix froze. "You followed me." "I didn't have to. People talk." She stood up, her smile venomous. "You see, Felix, we're both liars. You just happen to be worse at hiding it." Felix's chest tightened. "You're unbelievable." "No," she corrected, stepping close until her perfume stung his nose. "I'm untouchable. And you, my dear husband, are stuck with me, unless you want me to destroy your company with one phone call." He stared at her in disbelief. "You'd really do that?" Aurora smirked. "Try me." Then she walked away, leaving him trembling in the ruins of the life he built. That night, Felix packed a small bag and left the mansion. He drove all night to Ibadan, his eyes burning with exhaustion and desperation. When he arrived at Annabelle's house, it was almost dawn. He stood outside her gate for a long time before knocking. Annabelle came out, startled to see him. "Felix? What are you doing here?" He looked broken. "I had nowhere else to go." She crossed her arms. "You should be with your wife." He shook his head. "She's not my wife anymore. Not in any way that matters." Annabel sighed. "Felix, don't bring your problems here. I've built peace for myself and my son. Don't come to scatter it." "I'm not here to destroy anything," he said quietly. I just need to be near you. To see my son. To try to make things right." Her eyes softened for a moment, then hardened again. "You can't just walk back into our lives like that." "I know," he said, voice trembling. "But please, Annabel, give me a chance to prove I've changed." For a long time, she said nothing. Then, quietly, she opened the gate. "You can stay for one night. That's all." Felix nodded gratefully, his eyes filling with tears. When Junior woke up and saw Felix in the living room, he ran to him immediately. "Uncle!" he shouted with excitement. Felix smiled through tears and lifted him up. "Hey, champ!" Annabel watched from the doorway, her heart twisting painfully. The way Felix held the boy, gentle, careful, protective, reminded her of the man she once loved. Junior giggled. "Mummy, can he come again tomorrow?" Annabel forced a smile. "We'll see, baby." As the boy ran off, Felix looked at her with quiet hope. "He deserves to know, doesn't he?" Annabel sighed. "He deserves the truth. But truth has a way of breaking what's been built." Felix stepped closer. "Then let me help build it back, with both of you." Annabel looked into his eyes, those same eyes that once caused her pain but now carried genuine remorse. She didn't answer. She simply turned away and whispered, "We'll talk later." Meanwhile, Adeora's world began to crumble. Her lover, Chief Agbage, denied her publicly. Her friends turned their backs. The same media that once praised her now mocked her. In her anger, she made one last call, to Felix. "You think you've escaped me," she hissed. "If you don't come back, I'll ruin you. I'll tell everyone about your secret son." Felix was silent for a long time. Then he said calmly, "Do whatever you want, Adeora. The truth is no longer my enemy." He ended the call, exhaling deeply. For the first time in years, he felt free. That night, Annabel stood outside her house, staring at the stars. Kyoma joined her quietly. "You're thinking about him again," Kyoma said softly. Annabel nodded. "He's changed, Kyoma. I can see it. But I'm scared." "Scared of what?" "That if I let him in again, I'll lose everything I fought to rebuild." Kyoma smiled gently. "Or maybe, this time, you'll gain everything you were meant to have." Annabel looked toward the house where Felix and Junior were laughing together, and for the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a future she had long buried. The sound of laughter filled Annabel's small living room that evening. Junior was sitting on Felix's lap, showing him his homework while Felix patiently corrected his spelling. Annabel stood at the doorway, quietly watching them. The sight was beautiful, almost too beautiful to be real. For the first time in years, her home didn't feel like just a shelter, it felt like a family. Felix looked up, catching her gaze. For a moment, the world stood still between them. No words, just unspoken emotions stretching across time. Annabel cleared her throat and looked away. "Dinner is ready." Felix smiled softly. "Smells good." She tried not to blush. "Eat before it gets cold." They sat together at the small wooden table. The food, jollof rice and fried plantain, reminded Felix of the early days when they were both struggling students who cooked together in a tiny apartment. "Do you remember that time you nearly burnt the kitchen trying to fry plantain?" Annabel teased. Felix laughed. "You said I used too much oil. I was trying to make it golden." Annabel smiled faintly. "Everything you touch turns golden, Felix, except the things that matter most." Her words hit him like a knife. He lowered his spoon. "Annabel, I don't know how to undo what I did. But if you'll let me, I want to spend the rest of my life trying." She looked at him silently, torn between the past and the possibility of a future. Then Junior's innocent voice broke the tension. "Daddy, can I have more rice?" Both adults froze. Felix's heart stopped. Annabelle's spoon slipped from her hand. What did you call him?" she whispered. Junior blinked. "Daddy. He looks like me. And I like him. Can I call him Daddy?" Felix's eyes filled with tears. He reached out slowly. "You can call me whatever makes you happy, son." Annabelle's vision blurred. She stood abruptly and walked outside, fighting her tears. Felix started to follow her, but stopped when he saw her shaking her head silently. Not now. While Felix was rediscovering his humanity in Ibadan, Ada Aura was plotting revenge. She sat in her luxurious living room, surrounded by half-empty wine bottles and newspaper clippings. Her pride was wounded, and her fury had no limit. She picked up her phone and dialed a number. "Hello, Mr. Teo," she said coldly. "You're the journalist that loves scandal, right? I have a story for you." Teo chuckled. "Mrs. Adebayo, you know my price. Money is not the issue. I'll pay double. I want the whole world to know that Felix Adebayo has a secret child with another woman in Ibadan." Teo whistled. "That's heavy. Do you have proof?" Ada Aura smiled wickedly. "I'll give you everything, photos, address, even the child's name." "Then expect the headline by tomorrow morning," he said eagerly. Ada Aura ended the call and leaned back, whispering to herself, "If I can't have peace, neither will he." The next morning, Annabelle was preparing Junior for school when her phone began to buzz non-stop. Kyoma rushed in, holding a newspaper. "Annabelle," she gasped. "Have you seen this?" Annabelle took it with trembling hands, and froze. The headline screamed in bold letters. "Exclusive. Billionaire Felix Adebayo's secret son and ex-lover found in Ibadan." Below the headline was a photo, her photo. Her and Junior standing outside the shop. Felix's car in the background. Annabelle felt the world spin around her. No, this can't be happening. Junior looked up, confused. "Mummy, what's wrong?" She quickly turned away, tears filling her eyes. "Nothing, baby. Go inside." Kyoma placed a hand on her shoulder. "This is Adeora's doing. Only she could leak something like this." Annabelle sank into a chair. "My son. His life will never be normal again." Meanwhile, Felix arrived at his office only to find chaos. Reporters were camped outside, flashes of cameras blinding him as he walked in. "Mr. Adebayo, is it true you have a secret child? Did you cheat on your wife? Who is the woman in Ibadan?" His personal assistant tried to block the journalists as Felix hurried into his office, slamming the door behind him. Say was already there, looking worried. "Felix, this is bad. Investors are calling non-stop. Ada Aura went on TV this morning. She's saying you fathered a child while still married to her." Felix's jaw clenched. "She set this up." Say nodded. "What are you going to do?" Felix took a deep breath. "Tell the truth." Say blinked. "What?" "I won't let her destroy Annabelle again because of my cowardice. The truth is the only way out." Annabelle's shop was flooded with people the next morning. Journalists, curious neighbors, and gossipers. Kyoma tried to block them. "Please, she's not giving interviews." But they pushed and shouted questions. "Annabelle, did you trap him with pregnancy? Are you hoping to marry him now?" Annabelle's hands shook as she closed the shop door, tears streaming down her face. She turned to Kyoma. "I can't do this anymore. They'll ruin Junior's life." Kyoma held her hand. "Then maybe it's time to stop running." Annabelle wiped her tears. "What do you mean?" "Go to him. Not because of the noise, but because the boy deserves both his parents. You've been strong alone for too long, Annabelle." Annabelle hesitated, then looked at Junior, innocent, unaware, smiling despite everything.